Hey, this is Coach Shay with Alpha Girl Soccer Academy, and welcome to the Alpha Girl Soccer podcast show, where we aim to inspire, empower, and positively impact female athletes. Welcome back to the show. On today's episode, we have a very special guest and a good friend of mine, Shaun Soderling, who is the head coach of Brescia University Women's Soccer and the host of the top-rated Soccer Chat podcast. In this episode, Shaun and I talk about how the recruiting landscape has changed during this unprecedented time, how players can better connect with college coaches in the recruiting process, and the recipe for buy-in and a solid team culture. Enjoy. All right, guys, welcome to the show. Today we have a very special guest, Shaun Soderling from Brescia University. I just barely learned how to say Brescia the right way, so I think I got it right. Right, Shaun?
You did that time. You did get it right that time.
Yeah. I didn't get it right when I did some videos earlier, so Shaun had to teach me that. So before we start, if you're listening to this, make sure you go watch it because before we recorded, Shaun was all, upset about his hair looking bad, and so he was late, and now he's wearing a cool bucket hat. So you got to make sure you go
fashionably late.
Yeah, he was very fashionably late because his hair wasn't right.
Well, when I texted you about, public perception of a head coach, it's more really my mom and my wife's perception of me when I'm being viewed. So,
and they're definitely going to watch.
Yeah. And, and they, my wife's very peculiar about my hair in its current state it's in its own pandemic, if we want to be honest.
It is.
But actually it was a lot longer when she met me. So I was like, you've seen it longer than this. I had it grown out when my son was born. It's like, I don't know why it's a problem now, but hey, it is what it is.
It is what it is. She loves
you. And you were wearing a hat, so I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
2 tins in a bucket. I'll put it on.
We got to. Yeah. Cool. So before we get into it, I want to start off with a quick little fun questions here to get things kicked off. So first question for you. I know where you currently live, but we'll tell everyone where you live currently and where you're from, like where you grew up and everything.
So I currently live in Evansville, Indiana. It's about 35, 40 minutes away from where I coach at in Owensboro, Kentucky. And then I just moved. So I'm originally from this area, the Evansville area. I was born in Evansville, grew up there for a little bit, and then moved to Boonville, Indiana, which that name, what you are picturing just by hearing that, spot on what you're thinking about. Boonville, Indiana.
Oh,
and and the only big thing there is that's where actually that Lincoln went to law school, even though there's definitely not a law school in Boonville. But it's where he learned about law. I grew up in Boonville, Indiana, graduated from high school there. Then I moved to Vincennes, Indiana to go to college. Played junior college there for a couple of years. And then instead of going on to a 4-year school, I decided to stay because my university offered me a job to teach. And I was pretty heavy into the radio TV industry at the time. And then I really got into coaching and just realized that, back where I lived at, not specifically Boonville, but the Evansville area was a great place to get into coaching at, and took my talents, I guess, like LeBron, to Evansville. And other than we just moved back here from Midland, Michigan, I've basically been in Southern Indiana my entire life, except for the 2 years I spent up in Michigan.
I have never been to any of those places, and actually, I kind of just assumed that you lived in Kentucky because that's where Brescia is, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, where it's at, to me, like I said, it's like a 35-minute drive. So it's like if I lived in a big city, being on the other side of the city. There's, and that was something that kind of drove me to that job because there were other opportunities to go to a lot of other places. But that closeness, and my wife's a principal here in Evansville, and, we've been back in her school corporation for 2 years now, and I just didn't feel right, trying to move the family. And we toyed with the idea of, I would go somewhere as long as they could leave after school on a Friday and come visit me for the weekend, and, weighed that option. And while there was a chance that was going to happen, the opportunity to go to Brescia and to be a part of something pretty special was the icing on the cake for me to stay around here.
For sure. Yeah. I'm excited to kind of get into, the culture that you're starting to build at Brescia, and we'll get into that a little bit. So what is your favorite quote?
Oh man. I would have to say I guess it's kind of my not really my life motto, but I heard when I graduated college, um, a guy who was a businessman. Well, I'll just say it. He was a pro wrestling promoter. He was a boss of a company. And he talked about what made his company so successful was they didn't have the fireworks that Vince McMahon and the WWE had. They didn't have the big arenas, but they were still very, very successful and had TV deals. And he said the way if you don't have all those other things that your competition has, you have to hide the negative, accentuate the positive. So what are we good at? He said our performers, our athletes are the best athletes in the world. So that's what we put our focus on, not that we didn't have a stage, not that we didn't have pyro or we didn't have all school lighting. Our performers were what was the positive, and this atmosphere that our fans created was another positive. The fact that we did have a TV deal was a positive. So we hid the fact that we didn't have fireworks and all that stuff, and we focused on the good things. And so anybody who knows me knows I'm a super, super positive person, even with this current pandemic. And that's something that my athletic department currently is thrilled about, because while everybody's all up in arms, freaking out about stuff, and I'm just like, hey, like, okay, if that's happening, then we can just do this instead. So I would have to say my favorite quote that's arable is definitely hide the negative, accentuate the positive.
Love it. Yeah, I've actually never heard that in that way before, but I like that. Very cool. Okay, last fun question. If you could live in any decade, what decade would you live in and why?
Gosh, do I get to be my current age or do I have to go back to that age?
You have to be your current age.
Oh, man. I was born in 84, so I'm technically an 80s, 90s kid. I would like to go back at my current age, maybe to 2002. Was my freshman year of college, that August, and the ability to go do things. I never was a person that I didn't go to a lot of concerts growing up. I didn't really get college was like my freedom where oh, I can buy tickets to this show and I can go to it. That's okay. There's a lot of performers and athletes that I wish I could have seen in person. I just didn't get the opportunity to. And I'm not a live with regrets type person, but I look back and I'm just man, how cool would it have been to so here's a typical story. So my mom got me tickets to go watch the Pacers and the Bulls play because there was rumors that Michael Jordan might come back during that season. Well, for whatever reason, nobody thought that Indiana would be the game that he'd come back to. So my mom sold the tickets. And that was Jordan's first game back. I had tickets to go watch the St. Louis Cardinals play, and I got sick with pneumonia and didn't get to go. And that was the game that McGuire hit 70 and 71, or 69 and 70 home runs to destroy Roger Maris's record. So I missed out on some things in my life, but I've definitely made up for that once I've got older. But I would think it would be cool to, I'm a big music guy. Chris Cornell is probably one of my all-time favorite music artists. And another one, his last show was in Detroit. We were living in 2 hours outside of Detroit. And my mom was going to surprise me with tickets to the Soundgarden show in Detroit. And she, was and told me the day of it, I don't know why I didn't do it. I was going to get you and Casey tickets. And that was his last performance ever. And they found him dead the next morning. And that's just I don't want those things to happen to myself and to my kids. I want to, I was a big Audio Slave fan, which kind of came out when I was in college, which Chris Cornell and Rage Against the Machine. I would have loved to have go see them in concert and being able to have that freedom, to not worry about having class or having games. I could just get up and do it. So I would have to say, and those were the late 90s, early 2000s. I mean, man, life was chill and life was good before Twitter when everybody had an opinion and before Facebook. Well, at the time, Facebook, only certain colleges could get on it. So yeah, let's go 2002. I don't want to say the 90s or the 2000s, but let's give me 98 to 2003.
That sounds good. Yeah, because I if I had to answer that question, I probably would say 90s just because I grew up in the 90s.
I mean, I want to go back to that fashion. That's why we got the bucket hat kicked out.
I would be, man, if I was back in the 90s, I would actually be fashionable, but not now.
I really thought, and this will be the last like pop culture thing, because I'm a massive pop culture guy. I really thought when Bruno Mars released Finesse, and the word was that album was going to all sound like 90s music, I was like, here it is. It's going to come back. Cardi B's in this video. They're wearing the 90s fashion. I was like, it's going to come back. Bright neon colors, just one strap on your overalls. And that thought lasted about a month when I realized, no, it's not going to come back.
Not going to happen.
I cried on the inside, but I'm going to keep hope up,
Yeah, most people listening right now probably have no idea.
Educate yourselves. It was like did you see the video I posted on Facebook where it was like 90s music to everyone else when it comes on for me, and it's the dad in a shirt and tie in a parking lot getting down, and my wife's like, you do those exact dance moves. I was like, only us 90 kids know.
Yeah, that's Shaun for you. Yep.
Unfortunately, it is.
Yeah, no, fortunately. All right, so let's shift gears a little bit. And the first thing I really want to...
This is a soccer podcast, so I guess we do got to talk about it.
Yes, so let's talk soccer. So the first thing that I kind of want to dig into is the recruiting landscape, especially, right now with COVID. So like for you as a head coach, how have you seen the recruiting landscape shift in the last few months?
I try to think that, I don't know, I'm always a person that tries to stay ahead of the curve. And so with Brescia, I started there. My first week was the week of spring break. And my second week, by that Tuesday, was when the girls were getting told that they were getting sent home. So I spent a grand week with my players. And so even at that moment when I realized that, I've kind of been in tune and keeping up with what's going on. And I just kind of at that moment knew like, this is going to change things. And this is going to really take away a lot of access to players and to recruiting. So like, okay, what can I do? What can I do? And I'm a big social media guy. I'm a big technology guy. So it says like, okay, hey, Zoom's free now for anybody. How can I use that? So I was using that as, I was doing virtual recruit days where we would invite recruits to come on Zoom. I have a virtual tour video that we would show. Our school president would come on with us, admissions, financial aid department, and our players would come on and talk about, the experience of a student athlete. And really just because, from being at NAIA school, I was hearing my NCAA friends complain about what they couldn't do. And I was like, oh, I can do that. And so, I just, like I said, again, hiding the negative, accentuating the positive. We still have the ability to connect with these kids, whether it's through DMs, through Zoom or FaceTime, whatever it may be. And I'm much more of a face-to-face person because I speak with my emotions. I want you to see, not just hear what I'm saying. But so if you're listening to this on the podcast, you need to go watch the video at the Alpha Girl website. Cheap plug there. I want you to, like, for me, when I talk about my program, I literally smile from ear to ear talking about it, so much that my jaw hurts while I'm talking about the program. And I want recruits to see that. I don't just want to call them up and say it. Yes, I'll text them, but I also want them to truly hear and feel the excitement that we have for our program. So for me, it was just trying to stay ahead of the curve to where, I did a couple of those virtual recruit days just as like a test run to see what they would be like. And, the 2 test runs were fantastic and they worked. And so then we did one that was open to the public. We advertised it. And our president just thought it was like the coolest thing. Like, this is technology that as a university, we need to be using more of. So I noticed that after I did it a couple times, and once the NCAA kind of let go of some of their restrictions, I got a lot of phone calls and text messages about, hey,
I bet.
How did you do that? To where I wasn't going to give away my secrets because I do graphic design work, videography, stuff like that. But I was like, here, I'll send you what ours looked like, but it's up to you to actually, obviously do it your own way. So for recruiting, it's been, I had this recruiting company call me the other day because they sent an email out saying, we know during this time period that it's so hard to recruit and coaches aren't just, they're not having any luck. And I didn't want to be egotistical about it, but I just wrote back, it's like, we're actually doing really, really well. And like, surprisingly for our school and the situation that I walked into, we're doing really, really well. So the owner of that company got a hold of me and was like, how is this working? This is a pandemic. And I just explained myself because he was like, people are having a hard time writing letters, and the mail is getting, it's delayed. I was like, well, I don't use the mail. Like, my handwriting is horrible. I know that coaches do that, and that's their thing. That's cool, not mine.
Right.
I send videos to kids, and I do Zoom calls like what we're doing. And so I think for me, it was just getting ahead of that curve and seeing what would work during this time period. And recruiting for us is, the kids that are interested in Brescia University now, I've been on the job for about 3 months now. 3 months ago, none of these kids would have wanted to come to our school. Some kids that I've signed for 2020 and our 2021 commits that we've got already, which is insane that, a school like ours has already got kids for next year lined up already. It just speaks to what kids are buying into what we're doing, because our program is all about buy-in. And I think with, I've had local coaches in our conference. I've had coaches, local NCAA schools that are near us have reached out and was like, we see what you're doing on social media. We see what you're doing recruiting-wise. We can't keep up with that. And that's no disrespect to them. It's just they're like, you're going way above, what's, I guess, normal. And that's what's working for us. I guess I can't say the same for others, but I do know what I can do is I do try to help my friends who are asking, okay, hey, how do I do this? Or what can I put out that will garner attention? So for me, recruiting has been awesome because I think it's the pandemic has caused me to go harder, I guess, and find new ways to connect with kids.
Yeah, like for me too, it's like I use this time as a way to like pivot and shift and like you said, turn the negative into a positive. And it's like really went well with like your skill set and being so good with technology and some of the stuff you do. I'm like, dang, I want you to do that for me, right? I told you that.
You know what? I will do it for you, Shay. You just tell me.
All right, sounds good. But so like,
I think but you kind of hit the nail on the head. Was when I got into college coaching 9 years ago, my head coach that I was working for at the University of Evansville is now the technical director for Nashville SC. And I'll never forget when I first started there. He mentioned to me, he said, in coaching, you've got to be good at coaching and one other thing. And at that time, social media wasn't what it is now. When I started there, I was already kind of doing stuff on Twitter and Facebook, Instagram for the high school team I was coaching at the time, which is what caught the university's attention to want to bring me in. And he said, this is your one other thing. This is what's going to set you apart. So like you said, you call it using my skill set. My mom calls it actually using my degree for the first time. So again, I think it's just, you got to find that one other thing. And during this pandemic, maybe that's something that people can look into.
Right. So like, what do players need to do differently now than, when we're not in a pandemic? What do they need to do differently to get noticed?
The players that we've reached out to, and players that have reached out to us, the thing that I've said, so I do a camp in the summertime where I travel around with a group, and one of the things that we do is recruiting panels. And I like to think, I'm always on the recruiting panels, and from what I'm told, is because I'm honest and straightforward about things. And the thing I've told kids is you got to communicate. The more, we're not saying you have to text every day, email every day, send a training clip every single day, but just stay in contact like you would with a family member or somebody. And that's what our recruits, I guess without going in too much into detail, which you'll find out the way I talk, I go into a lot of detail. A player that we've got coming into Brescia, who was our highest recruit that we were after. We want to make sure she knew how bad we wanted her here. So it was sending her texts, sending her graphics all the time, sending her videos, making stuff for her. And all of her teammates were signed up to these D1 schools, and they didn't get anything like that. They just got, hey, we're a D1 school. We want you to come here. Yeah. And they were just like, yeah, okay, hey, D1, I'm going to go there. They were seeing, because obviously she was like, yo, peep this video. Like, look at what my dude is making for me in Kentucky. And they were all like, that's an AI school. I'm going to do that. I didn't get anything like that. So I think that was something that, that caused her to stay in communication with us. And recruits that, our 2021 commits that we've gotten already are just kids that have stayed in contact with us. I try to, if I don't text them every day, it's probably, I'll probably text them 3 times a week. If that, just, hey, how's it going? Or, I, from my education background, social emotional learning, or SEL as the educators, call it, and I'm doing that for my wife. That is all about building relationships and being able to work together and problem solve because of the relationship that you've built. So for me, when it comes to recruits, I try to know everything about them. I want to know, music they listen to, sports they're into, TV shows they're into, all that stuff, to where it's not just always like, hey, how are you doing? Like total like creep text. I can be like, yo, did you see the Washington Spirit game last night? Your girl Rose Lavelle was blowing up. Or I'm saying this, but now my wife will hear this. Yo, that new Megan Thee Stallion song, Girls in the Hood, like that song. Have you heard that? I just heard that on the way to Michigan. It's a great song. Oh, I got the whole Megan Thee Stallion album, So like, I try to have something that I can just have that conversation and not, like I said, 3 times like, hey, how are you? Are you thinking about Brescia? I'll throw in the what do you think about Brescia after we've had a little bit of conversation. So I think the more recruits are just, they communicate. I love, there's a couple recruits that we've got currently that, they train basically every day, and they'll make like a compilation video and send to me once a week. Hey, here's what I've done this week. And their communication is awesome. So, and I'm a talkative person. I'm a social person. So the more you talk to me, the more it makes me feel like you're actually interested in our program, as compared to, yes, I'm interested in your program, and then you ghost me for 4 weeks, and then talk to me again, and then ghost me for another 4 weeks. So I think the more the more you communicate, the better. And just, obviously some states are back to playing now, some aren't, but I think if you just keep us updated with what you're doing, and you don't have to send a video, you can just say, hey, here's what I did on my own today, or I worked with a personal trainer, or I go to Alpha Girl Soccer, and here's what I did with Coach Shay, which I'm going to sign an Alpha Girl Soccer.
That's definitely a ticket to a D1 program.
That is, I want to sign an Alpha Girl soccer player so bad. It's going to happen, hopefully sooner rather than later. But, that's the thing that's really, I think I've noticed just talking to other coaches, is the communication. A lot of coaches have kind of been going through things where we'll talk to a kid and then you don't hear from them for 3 or 4 weeks. And that's just the coaches who want to communicate. I've got coaches who are like, I shouldn't have to call you or text you every other day. I shouldn't have to do that. So I think it's just your own thing, but I just think the more you communicate with a coach, especially right now, the better, especially during the pandemic that we're in. It's only going to help you out more.
Yeah. I mean, because I think a lot of kids are probably like scared of like, oh, I don't want to bug you. Like, is there such thing as too much communication?
I think it depends on where you're at. Like, my first experience coaching college was at Division I level in a really, really good conference that's known historically for soccer, and on the men's side. And I could see at that level where there is some communication that's a little over the edge. But at the same time, that's where, being honest with the kids, just like, hey, unfortunately you're not fitting, you're not going to be a good fit for us, or, we're not going to be a good fit for you. But I think at a level like NAI, like at a D3 and some D2 schools, I think that can be, I feel like that gives a coach the notion, like, you really want to be here. So like, if you would do that with a D1 program, because you really want to do that D1 program, but you're also really interested in these D2, D3, NAI, NCCAA, junior colleges. Gotta give a shout out to my JUCOs. I was a JUCO kid. As much as you communicate with them, I think you should communicate with the others just the same. And if a coach will tell you, like, hey, you don't have to let me know all the time, then take it back a little bit. But for me, I want that communication all the time. I don't care if it's I was going to date myself and say a Bugaboo, Destiny's Child reference. I'm going to count how many like late 90s, early 2000s references we have on this. But, for me, that lets me know that you're really interested in our program and our program specifically, just because of what we're doing with it and where it's been. So I think it just depends on the school and the maybe the division on how much you communicate, because you also got to think, especially at D1 school, you're sending all these stuff, but guess what? There's also hundreds and hundreds, and possibly thousands of kids who are doing the exact same thing. So you don't want to get lost in the shuffle.
Right.
So I think it just depends on the college and the level that you're talking to.
Yeah. And I mean, it's probably better to over communicate than under communicate, especially at the beginning. Right.
100%. 100%.
Right. Yeah. And so like how important, because I know like you are huge on social media, you probably use that to recruit kids, but like how important, especially these days, is social media for like how important is it for kids to use social media to kind of get themselves out there and maybe get noticed by coaches on there?
I tell you what is really I've noticed just in the last month or so. I don't know if it's driven by the pandemic, but I'm a big, like you said, I'm a big social media guy. I do a lot of talk with kids about protecting their brand and promoting their brand on social media, and watching what they're posting. And I had a recruit that I talked to recently, whose Twitter is basically a recruiting profile, and posting videos every day talking about training and stuff like that. And and we just had a conversation with it. I was like, so what's your format of your account? Like I'm not disagreeing with it. I just, why is it like that? Why aren't you like most kids and posting about the latest Cardi B news? Or is Cardi B even a thing anymore?
Maybe.
My wife and I had a 9-hour drive to Michigan a couple weeks ago, and we was rocking some Sirius XM. We had the Heat, we had hip hop and all that stuff on. Not once in 9 hours did I hear a Cardi B song, and I was kind of upset about it. But and she just said, I view it as, not knocking these recruitment companies, because I mean I use them. They're fantastic groups for what they do. She's like, I just realized that what those things do, I can just do on Twitter, and I can do the exact same thing. And I was just like, that's super cool. And so what I've really noticed is her club team is a very, very high level, to where now she's helping the other girls on her team who have now created Twitter accounts. And I mean, do they all look kind of similar? Because it's like both, all of them are talking about, but at the same time, I like that. I think that's super cool, because what they're promoting is what they want to do. They want to be college soccer players, and they're telling you maybe 3 times a week, maybe it's once a day, what they're doing to get to that point. And to see a kid's development that way is huge. Like there's a player that that we've talked to, that I've honestly coached them at camp in the summertime and wintertime for the last 3 years. I've literally seen her get better year after year after year. And so that's the thing I really love about these Twitter accounts that kids are using. And it's the direct access to coaches and to programs. As long as the DMs are open, you can slide in and, let us know what's going on. I love being able to see that development. There's players I've watched put out a highlight video from last fall. And then they just recently posted something that they've done recently, whether it's personal training or, camp or something. And to see that improvement that they've made in this pandemic. And then I get to hold that over my own players' head. Like, look at this. Look at what they're doing. So I think it can only help kids to use social media. Again, if you aren't, and again, this is not a knock to the recruiting profile websites. I like all of them. I use them all, except for one, but I'm not going to name drop. But it's a way to be able to get that exact same stuff for free, basically, and you can control it at any time. I always have to have my visual examples. You always have this on you, so you can always update that thing. So I think kids, the more they use it for that content, is going to be better for them in the long run.
So do you think Twitter's the best place to go for kids to get noticed by coaches, or Instagram? I would say probably one of those two, right?
Yeah, I think more. So I just turned 36. I don't claim to be 36. I feel a lot younger than what I am.
Dang.
Yeah. For me, it's Twitter.
Yeah.
And the only reason why I say Twitter is because a lot of coaches I know who are my age or older are not on Instagram. Or if they are on it, they're not on it for coaching. It's like my Instagram is basically, it shows my life. Like I'll put soccer stuff on there, but it's not dedicated soccer. It's my family. It's places I go, things I see. And it's private. So, cause like I said, it's just basically like of my family, and I share that with friends. But, our team account, I think we get more interaction from recruits on Twitter than we do on our Instagram accounts. And I don't know if that's because our Instagram is new. There wasn't one before I got there. So obviously, I'll give the deets at the end on how to follow that. But I think it's just because I'm more active on Twitter in talking with recruits that our Twitter does seem to, and plus too, I mean, like, I don't have to wait for an IGTV, like, to click to keep watching. I can just watch the 2-minute clip right there on Twitter. So I'm going to say Twitter. I don't know.
No,
Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
I would agree with you. I feel like Twitter is more, I don't know if business is the right word, but like even I think there's way more coaches on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I just feel like Twitter's probably like you said, especially for older coaches, more older coaches probably have Twitter as opposed to Instagram. So I think that's the best.
And Instagram's algorithm is booty
Yes.
because I
Yes.
may upload a video, but my followers may not see it until 3 hours later. So
Yeah.
like anybody who knows the IG algorithm, like holler at me. Like I'm trying to figure that out.
I don't know if anybody knows. If you know, hit
And
me
that's the thing.
up.
I don't think anybody knows what it is because I used to have everything mapped out. Like, hey, this is the time to post on Instagram. This is the time to post on Twitter. This is the time to post on Facebook. And just Instagram lately, it's just their algorithm is so crazy, and it doesn't matter. Like we did a scavenger hunt with another team during the pandemic to try to make some type of competition, and we both had posted stuff like our like final because we did it where like you had to find all the clues and then post them all on Instagram. Well, I posted all of us on Instagram, and I sent to the text to their coach like, hey, it was Manya Papioni over at Marymount. I was like, hey, we just turned ours in. And then a little while back, she wrote, said we did too. But on Instagram's algorithm, it showed her team posted theirs first before ours. I was like, there's no way. So that's really a heated debate that Manya and I still have on that. So yeah, I think, if you really want to get that instantly to your kids or to coaches, I think that is the way to go.
Yes. So, word of advice, once you're done listening to this, go create a Twitter profile and go follow Shaun, which we'll talk about later. Go follow Brescia.
Absolutely.
We'll plug those later too.
For sure.
Yeah. Okay. Last recruiting question. What is one thing that you as a coach, because you're a very unique individual, and I mean that in the best way.
Thank you for saying it that way. That's probably the nicest way I've heard it.
What is one thing that you look for in a player that you think most players maybe overlook or don't think that it's super important when it comes to recruiting?
Man.
Good question, I know.
It is. That's a great question. You just need to take over my podcast because I don't ask good questions. You and Nick would have the ultimate podcast.
I learned from you.
Great questions. Oh, I wouldn't tell anybody that. For us, my opening line in our email to recruits is that we're looking for players of high character and high quality. And I think character is going to have to be the big thing because the quality we can coach that.
For sure.
Character you can't. I'll admit, like when I see a recruit's video, the first thing I do is I start Twitter and Instagram stalking, and because that's where I'm going to really see what the kid is about. I think your character is, in just talking with other coaches recently, I think that's the thing that a lot of us have come to grips on of, do you take this kid who's really, really, really good, but they have a crap personality or they have crap attitude? Or do you take this kid that you can work and you can make better? That's great person. And I think more coaches have find themselves getting burned in that situation. The last school I was at before Brescia, when our staff got there in the spring, a lot more people told our staff not to take the job than told us to take it. And we showed up, we had 25 players, and we said, okay, hey, this is what we expect academically. This is what we expect athletically. If you don't think you can get to that, that's cool. Like, we'll help you go. We're going to support you. You're always going to be a part of this. If you want to try to get to those two levels, we're going to work with you for it. We had 20 out of 25 players leave. And we brought in 17 freshmen and transfers that first year and said, okay, hey, all these 17 match exactly what we want person-wise, athlete-wise. Yeah. The person is also the academic portion of it. Yeah. I'm sitting here like I have a chart or something. So those who are watching are like, what is he doing with his hands? And our goal was, okay, hey, these players match exactly what we're looking for. By year 4, let's get to the conference championship. Our school hasn't been there. Year 4, let's get there. We made it in our first year and lost in PKs. Wow. And we were like, man, like we're so close. Let's bring in another set of players just like what we brought in. Not 17 more, but let's bring in players just like these. Do they match these type of characteristics that we're looking for? unfortunately, we made it to the semifinals that year. Our third year, we brought in probably the best players in our class that we had at that school, who not only matched what we were looking for character-wise, excelled what we were looking for athletically. And we won the conference championship that year. And it was just like, for me, that was kind of the blueprint, because I've been a part of programs, college, high school, and club, where, yeah, you've got the superstar player, but man, as a person, they are just not fun to be around
Right.
or be associated with. And so that's really something that's kind of, I mean, I've been coaching for 18 years now, I think 18 or 19. I try to keep it on the lower number.
That's a long time.
It is. I feel like I've done this for a while, to where, okay, like I was a high school head coach for 12 years and then got into to college coaching. And so I feel like I've been able to take my own successes from coaching in high school and the negatives that happened, rearrange them, to which the last high school coached at was like the most successful time I've ever had. And then take what I saw from these two programs I was a part of, where I wasn't in charge. Oh, I liked how we did this. I didn't like how we did this. Don't like the style of player that we're recruiting. I like the style of player recruiting. And just come up with my own, I guess, my own criteria.
Right.
And that's the big thing. Like I said, we can teach skills. We can make you a better player, but to try to make you a better person, like I don't have a PhD. I can try to make you a better person, but I want you to come in the first day and be the best person you can be. So I think for me, a lot of coaches probably say it's the skills, and we got to be able to work with the skills, but you got to be a good person. If you're not a good person, you're not going to fit in our program and what we try to do and what we try to do for our community as well. Because we're trying to build. I told our girls this on day one. We want to make the leaders of tomorrow in our team. Like I told our girls in the meeting, a future CEO was in that room, a future teacher is in that room. I was like, the future president of the United States could be in this room right now. I was like, because I believe that you guys can make that type of impact on the world. And I say this on every show I'm on, but even like when I was a teacher and as a coach, I tell like this generation, like, y'all are going to change the world. And I'm so pumped about that.
Yeah.
And so if I don't feel like you have that character thing that can be that type of, a person in the future that's going to help make change, that's just going to set you back. And it's going to set us back as a program, especially a first year program, but first year for me with the team, with the issues I know that they've had. We've got to bring in a lot of good character players. So that's like one player that we've got coming in she's basically me. Like we've got the same personality.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, it's gonna be real bad. One of the things that brought my attention to her wasn't just her highlight video. It was, her team had posted they were having a water break and they played music during their training sessions, just like I do. And they're all having a water break. Well, she starts leading a dance contest. And I was just like, that's what I do. Like if kids are getting water break and the beat is good, let them know what's going down, So like, I just saw that. I was like, okay, this is the best way for me to, from a player standpoint, push that whole personality, that whole character thing into our program, was to have someone who is a player that basically is the same, same as me. And she'll even tell you, like, coach just brought me on for my dance moves, which is not true. That's a part of it. But I was recruiting this past weekend, and there was a DJ at the showcase, and this team was like getting their photo taken by him, and they were just kind of standing around, and he was like, "You guys want to dance and get down and party?" And they were like, "Yeah." They just started dancing, going like crazy, and I just instantly was like, "Oh!" And they, like, just the way they were smiling and laughing, having a good time, I was like, that, that's what we're looking for. Like, we want that energy, that positiveness. And then I just so happened to the next game I was watching was their game. Got to talk to their coach, and I got to watch them. They were really good players. I was like, look, this totally sounds weird. I saw your players dancing with the DJ and their energy. That's what drew me to watch this game. And now to see how they translate that onto the field, they work well together. They love playing for each other. I was like, that's what we're trying to do at our program. And so it's just those like little things that I think as coaches, we find that one little thing that draws us to a player or to a style of player that is a character. So people are listening to this right now like, okay, well, to play for Shaun, I got to have good dance moves. That's not the case. I've seen plenty of bad dancers.
It helps, though. It definitely helps.
Yeah, I just, you got to have energy. You got to have positiveness. Like, I want you to enjoy the experience, and I want you to make the most of the experience. And if you can if part of your thing is to make the experience better for all those who are around you, oh my gosh, can you imagine having, 30 players on your team who their everyday goal is to make that day better for the other 29 players? Oh, sign me up. That's what we're trying to do.
Right. And so like with the kind of, because with character, the more players you have with great character, the better your team culture is going to be. Absolutely. And you are doing a phenomenal job, and everyone knows this, but you're doing a phenomenal job at building buy-in and build the belief and like all this stuff you're doing. And so like let's say that there's like a kid that's on a new team and maybe they're a leader and their team is really struggling with like buy-in and like being unified as a team, and maybe they have a lot of cliques, whatever it is. Like, what do you find are like a few teams that, or a few things that are needed to really create like a good team culture? Like if you were to create like a recipe, what would be in that recipe?
Ooh. Man.
That was
good. From a player standpoint. Oh man. In my playing experience, I don't think, even though like I was a student body president and all those like leadership things, I never really brought it into sports. But as a coach, I definitely feel like, I guess I have a recipe for coaches to use. But for a player, I think it's just a lot of times when there's culture issues, in my experience, and again, this is not, the gospel or anything, a lot of it comes down to the players just don't know each other. And if my players are listening to this right now, they're going, Coach was told that from day one that we don't know each other. That's the biggest, and again, it comes back to that SEL, building those relationships. If you don't know the person that you're competing with and competing against every day, if you don't know what they're going through or what they've been through, you have no way to connect with them. And so you've got to find grounds to connect with. As a coach, and you've experienced this, you can't coach every player the same way. You've got to know their personality. You got to know their background and know, okay, hey, like this player I can be stern with and I can get onto them because that's going to turn to make them better. If I do it with this player, they're just going to shut down and it's over. So I've got to be nice. Hey, that was good, but let's try it this way. So I think when teams have those issues, the best thing a player can do is you got to do a team bonding activity to show that soccer is not a problem. For coaches, I would say Becky Burley's a good friend of mine. I'm going to name drop that one. Did you hear that? That was a name drop. She has the What Drives Winning program, which every coach is on. And if you're not on it, I don't know what you're doing. But there's a game not a game, but it's just an exercise that they do with their team when they're having issues. And I don't know what the actual name of it is, but it involves sticky notes. I just call it the sticky note game. Mm-hmm. I recently did it with our players because the thing for our players was I was trying to show them as it's not a soccer problem that we have. Mm-hmm. And for players who are experiencing this with their teams, it's trying to show that side of, hey, soccer is not our problem. It's these other things that is keeping us from our soccer being better. So the sticky note game is you give the players a sticky note, 3 sticky notes, I think it is. One, you can do 1 or 3, whatever. I did 1. No, I did 3. I said, what are 3 things that you think that keeps you from helping us succeed? And they write their 3 things down. And then because we did it via Zoom because pandemic times, #pandemic. So I built I didn't get to use your awesome whiteboard that you used. So I just had like a PowerPoint presentation where I could put on there. I put human on one side, soccer skills on the other, or soccer on the other. And when we would have the kids announce what their, what their 3 things were. And then we asked everybody, okay, hey, one player, I get mad when other people make a mistake. Not so much at them. I just get upset when people make a mistake. Okay, so is that a soccer problem or is that a human problem? That's a human problem, coach. Okay, we moved it over to human. So as they go through and they tell you this stuff, you just put it on soccer or human. And we had all of ours were on the human side.
Wow.
And most times when you do this with a program who is having that culture problem, it always tends to go that way. But the cool thing is it gives them a visualization of, it's not a soccer problem. It's an us thing. And so for our program, I don't know, I hate saying this because I don't want to brag or anything, but this is my only opportunity. The first meeting that we had, it was if you want to call it a come to Jesus, whatever you want to call it, it was very straightforward. Like, the way things have been done in the past are not acceptable, and that's why you've had what you've had. This has to change in order for, you have to change in order for this to change. And the next day on campus, our girls were running around on campus taking selfies with each other. They were eating together for lunch and breakfast. Hearing the girls would actually see me on campus and go, "Coach, our campus is not big whatsoever." Our girls were like, up until this very moment, even during our season, we could walk and see each other on campus, and it'd just be kind of like you'd see them and just keep walking.
Yeah.
We're stopped. Like today, we are stopping and having conversations with each other on our way to classes. And like we did a scavenger hunt game where it was like, you had to post 4 pictures on Twitter, and the more people from the team that you got in a picture, you got more points. But you can only use each person once. And they were, "Are you in your dorm right now?" "Yeah." "Okay, well, I'm coming outside to take a selfie with you." And so like they were interacting and just getting it to where, I mean, by, like I said, day 1, day 2, girls were already like, I can already see the difference now. Now I think with the pandemic, has that kind of dropped things a bit? Yeah, because they're not around each other. But I think every program is going through that at this moment in time. But you can see, our girls will still text me now, every now and then, just kind of checking in about the difference already. I mean, they do Skype lunches where since they can't go to restaurants and eat together, they all will either make something at home or they'll go grab something, sit their computer or phone down and set it up like they're sitting at the table, and they don't even talk about soccer. They just talk about life and what's going on. And so it's stuff like that. I think for culture, a lot of it is stuff without a ball, and people, I think, don't realize that. You can force a ball into the conversation, but that just triggers everything back to your issues. So for us, it's been, I've not seen our players touch a ball once in the time that I've been with them, but other than videos that they've sent me. But I just think any team that's having a culture issue, you've got to take a step back. You as a coach have to look back and go, is the things that I'm seeing, is it stuff that I'm contributing to? Because I think that's a big thing too, where coaches can blindly be contributing to issues. And I don't like bringing it up, but especially with what's going on with races and racism and stuff like that, people can be so oblivious. And I've said this on our podcast, and I've said to them, people are like, "Oh, you mean oblivious?" For example, if you're setting up teams, and just for whatever reason, whatever it is you may be doing, set up groups. If you just always have the minorities over on 1 or 2 groups, every time, you aren't trying to do that, but what message is that sending to them, which can cause a breakdown in that team stuff? I guess I should have put a disclaimer. I'm biracial, for those who are listening. So like I've worked with teams recently with coaches who have been like, I think they think that there's a race problem, and like I know that there's not. It's something where even when this all got started, I mean, our team put out a statement that was so awesome. Most schools put out a generated statement from their coach or from their AD. I wanted it to be our players' voices. And I wanted the words to come from them. And when they had their discussion on what they were going to write about, to have our African Americans, to have our Hispanics talk about their issues and what they go through every single day, still to this day, for me to talk about what I go through, it caused a lot of our players to go, "Oh gosh, I can totally see how they think that." Like, and then the big joke is we have a group on our program called the Blonde Squad. And it kind of opened up their eyes to, this how it was in the past. Like they always split everything down in 2 groups, and all the African Americans and Hispanics also just happened to always be on one group together. So while they were oblivious to it, because their thought process was, well, our group is fine, we're cool, so that group, they've got to be fine, they've got to be cool. It's stuff like that to where as a coach, you've got to peel everything back. And maybe as a player too, I guess, if a player is having a culture problem, peeling it back that far, if there's, different races on the team, but you've got to be willing to go back. And when you're the one who discovers that, say, okay, am I contributing to this? Because if I am, here's what I've got to do to make that better. So I think for a kid that is wanting, a player who's wanting the culture to change, you got to get if the coach isn't on your side, you got to get them to change too.
Right.
And you've got to get them to change first. I do think that there are cool things that, especially like with what you're doing with Alpha Girl Soccer. I mean, with that, and the confidence is a big thing. And this is just talking specifically on the women's side of the game. I find that it's, at least with the programs I've been with and teams, that it's hard for that. I've never really had that alpha girl. We just signed her for our program, but that person who comes in and looks at things and goes, "This is not okay. This needs to change. How can I, as a player, change it?" Yeah. Where I do think maybe on the men's side, you may have that every now and then, but not a lot. And I don't know if players feel like that's a coach's point to go through, or like if kids are thinking, well, this isn't something I can change. It's got to come from the coach. But I do think that as a player, if you get the coach involved in these things, and again, watch the What Drives Winning stuff, find various programs or articles that can help you, and allow, because I think it's got to come from the coach. That's just me. I think you can do stuff in the players only meeting to work on that culture, because the thing when it comes to working on that culture, there's going to be some tears, and you've got to accept that. Julianne Stitch, who is an assistant coach for the Red Stars, talked with our team, and she talked about when she was in school, in college, they did a thing called My Shitty First Draft. Sorry for cursing. I really don't cuss that much.
It's okay. You can say the S word.
Okay. That's my one S word. But it's the title of this project, so it has to go. So, it's, if you're having problems with somebody, you write that rough draft letter that you want to say to them. You tuck it away. You wait 24 hours later, and you go back and you rewrite it. Now that you've had time to cool down, and then they got together and read, everything to them. And I think that's where, you've got to be honest, because in this time and age, there's so much fakeness in the world. I think you just got to be upfront with people and confront those issues. And if they really want to help make things better, they're going to. If they don't want to make things better, that tells you all you need to know.
I love that, because it really is like a coach can't do it alone. I'm sure you know that. Like if you try to do all this stuff and your players aren't bought in, nothing's going to change, right?
Yeah.
And for sure, a player can't do it alone. Like they can try to initiate it and like be kind of the leader and like, putting into play these things, but it has to come from both of them, right? Yeah. And I think the big thing, like if you were to sum it up in like one word as far as what it takes to have good team culture, I would say it would be connection, right? Like without connection and without relationships, like
I was going to say, I would go with relationship would be the word.
Yeah, relationships, right?
That's the buzzword I think right now. So.
And connection. But it's true. Like even talking about, like, that might be the title of this podcast, is something about connection. And
yeah,
even when you were talking about recruiting, it's like when a player can connect with the coach or like show, who they really are as a person, like that's huge. And I think that's something that a lot of players don't always think about.
Yeah.
So I think with recruiting and with the whole culture piece, it's like you have to be able to build relationships and connect with your coaches and your teammates, or else long term you won't be successful as an individual and you won't be successful as a team.
Yeah, just relationships are huge, and that's something to where I love watching. Because again, and maybe this is from being an educator, I love watching coaches of all sports, of all things. There's a friend of mine who's a professional wrestler, back to that reference, who's a coach, or who was a coach for WWE. And I would always ask him questions. Hey, because coaching and teaching, it's all the same thing. We're teaching somebody how to do something. It's just the topic in the classroom is different. So I love watching, watching coaching instructions from various things. And I love listening to my wife talk about administrative stuff from a school perspective. My father-in-law is a superintendent. He's constantly sending her stuff. And I try to think of myself, okay, well, how can I tie that into coaching? And I'll take those things and just make it soccer specific. As I have a recruit trying to FaceTime me right now. It's all right. Let me send this to her real quick.
Tell her you're a big shot on a podcast. You can't talk right.
Unless it's like something crazy important. But, I try to take things that they're doing and teaching methods or whatever it may be and put it into soccer. um, to where, that's the thing that I hear my wife talk about all the time is relationships, that connection, those relationships, especially at a school like hers where, it's one of I wouldn't say that Evansville is an inner city. We do have a good inner city area. And for her, and I actually got to work at her school for a semester. And, those are the schools that we love being a part of because those relationships are so big. And the thing that I think she would say as an educator and I say as a coach too is, you use the word connection, I'll say relationship, but I'll say connection, you can say relationship. Those are the key to everything. If you don't have that connection, if you don't have that relationship, it's going to be really, really, really hard. And when you have that connection and you're working together and there's a problem, you figure an easier way to get around that problem or to work that problem out because you had that connection and that relationship. So I think that's a big thing that there's so many. The whole phrase is I'm their coach, I'm not their best friend. I get that. I'm not one of those people. I've got friends who are.
Yeah.
I'm their coach and I'm their best friend. Totally get that. If that's your thing. That's your thing. I also look at it as I'm a parent of 2 kids. I'm their dad. I'm not their best friend.
Right.
So for me, I want to have that relationship with you, that connection to where, when it's time to get down to business and it's time to, to work, you're not thinking something else because of how our relationship, what our connection is. You're saying, oh, hey, I don't want to disappoint this person. Or if we're having this issue, oh, she's laughing at me because that was an important Zoom call. But I hope she hears this. I'll be like, you're the reason that this is getting interrupted. I keep forgetting what the question was, but I think it's that, like we said, that connection, that relationship that, I butt dialed you 3 times. Stop it. I think there are so many coaches that they can't decide. They're afraid that if they have that relationship, that it leads to that best friend status. And maybe they only do that with a couple players. So then it's going to look like they have favorites. And then there are some who are like, I don't want that connection because I want to be the coach. Well, then you probably also have a lot of players who are like, don't relate with you, or they don't try not to disappoint you. I think it's just with anything in life. You gotta make relationships and connections with everyone because you don't know how that person can help you. You don't know how you can help them. But when it comes to like working things out, I mean, you're a player, you're a coach, same thing with my wife as a principal and when she was a teacher. You've got to have some type of relationship to make teamwork work. And if you don't have that connection, you don't have a relationship, it's really, really hard. If you think about, there's probably teachers who are listening to this thinking, oh, there's kids that I don't have relationships with in my classroom, that it is a struggle to get them to do their stuff. And there's kids who I have great relationships with who may have that same attitude or they're from that same environment that they do everything that I ask. Well, you've got a relationship with them. So I guess, that's a great motto for originally I thought we were going to be like culture and buy-in, but I think the motto is relationships and connections.
I love it. Yeah, that's perfect. It just kind of all flowed together, honestly. But yeah. All right, Shaun, it's plug time. Time to give us your plugs. Where can players, coaches find more about Brescia, learn more about you, get on Twitter, all that good stuff?
Obviously, just go to brescia.edu to learn about our school. And you can find our athletic links from there. But since I'm the big social media guy, to follow me, it's at Coach Soderling. And I don't know if you know how to put the link in the actual, I just learned how to do this a while back. So in the actual show info, like on our show, you can click on the name and like their stuff pops up.
Yes.
So it's just, and that wasn't like Shay, I just was like, I don't know if you have to do this.
I do.
Coach Soderling on all platforms. My wife would say I'm too much on Twitter, but I'm Coach Soderling on all platforms. And for our program, it's Brescia, BRESCIAWSOC. So just Brescia WSOC on all platforms. That was something that I'm a continuity guy in brand. So when I took the program over and each platform had a different name, I was like, no, like let's get one, and we're gonna go with that. So Brescia WSOC. I'm always talking to players. Even if you're not looking at an NAI school or you're not looking at the state of Kentucky or whatever, I always tell players, just talk to me once. And even if we're not in the conversation, you're going to learn about our school, because maybe there's something about our school that you like. You just maybe not like the location. That you may then take that and go, okay, hey, I know this is what I'm looking for. Yeah. Where can I find it location wise? So, players reach out to me through there. Our DMs are always open. Mine are always open. I have a very public email address that you can get on our Brescia website. It's just shaun.soderling@brescia.edu. But yeah, any player who's listening to this, I know our players listen to it, so they're probably going to skip this episode since I'm on it.
No way.
But players who are listening to this, and I know that you do have a good following of players, the ones who are taking your initiatives, and they're, maybe if they're not being able to be there in California with you in training, they're taking your videos and they're taking your podcasts. It's changing kids, and I love it. Like I told you one day, I think I sent you a message. It was like 10 o'clock a.m. my time, which is like 6 a.m. your time. So sorry for waking you up, but like I had a player that listened to one of the episodes, and I hate that I can't remember it right now. And she was just like, that was the best 15 minutes. Like I needed that 15 minutes. Oh, it was the confidence in yourself. Yeah. She was like, I hid as a player last year. I did not show how good I was because I was so concerned about just getting to know people and being nice with everybody that I never really showcased how good I was, and sent me this like big, chapter long text message. And I was like, all right, I just got to send this to Shay, like to let her know like what's going on. So like players who are listening to this, the fact that you're taking the initiative to listen to Shay's show, and you're following the Alpha Girl online, you're following the website, you are more than welcome to contact us. We want the Alpha Girls, and I do think that there are Alpha Girls all over the place. And maybe they haven't, they just maybe haven't heard about Alpha Girl Soccer yet. If I can do anything I was realizing the other day that when you came on our show, I think it's been about almost a year now since you've been on. Yes. And my prediction was that you were going to blow up by a year. And I mean, I don't know what your numbers are now compared to before, but I think more people know you. So I think I got that part of it right. Yeah. So we still got to keep promoting you, but I think for me as a coach, this is the last thing for the players that are reaching out. I mean, this specific episode, I guess for me, of all the other shows I've done since I've taken a job, I've been on another podcast about the whole thing going on with racism, and I was obviously very serious during that. This really shows a lot of my personality, and what you heard or seen on this. I mean, that's what I am. I can't. I guess I apologize for it. Like, it's just, and I'm the same way for soccer. So if I put up a video one day of I had a really good phone call with the recruit, super great phone call. My family was up on vacation in Michigan, and I had Sirius XM playing in the background, and the new Usher song came on. And I just couldn't help myself. I just started dancing. Like I was so happy. It was such a good mood. It was like 11:30 at night because they were on the West Coast time. And I was like, you know what? I think recruits should see this. Like, I'm this happy about having a phone call. Yeah. I want to show them. So I found the song, turned it on, set up the camera in the kitchen. Why it's only in my kitchen, I don't know. But and I danced to the song again, and put on her, title like, hey, had just had a great phone call with a recruit. And yes, this is what I'm like after a lot of my phone calls. So much that like a week later, I had a kid who's actually coming to our campus tomorrow email me. And I was like, how did you hear about our school? And she said, my dad he follows you on Twitter because he follows your podcast, I guess. He follows you on Twitter, and he saw this video, and he sent it to me in a text message and said, if I was you, and I was looking for a college coach to play for, I think that's who I'd want to play for. And I was just like, what? Like, I was not expecting it to even like do anything. Mm-hmm. And so, that kind of got spread around to where now there's like a couple more from her club and high school team. Like, we saw the dancing video. Like, is that really your personality? Yeah. And unfortunately that really is. So I think on top of embarrassing our players, I know I embarrass my wife when I dance. So, it is what it is. You just, what was it JT say? You can't stop the feeling.
Can't stop the feeling.
When you dance.
Oh shoot, Shaun. But for real, guys, like he is just like go check out Brescia, their Twitter. Like it's the most amazing stuff that I've seen any college do. So it's
Ooh, you need to look at some more stuff.
No, well, maybe I do, but for me, that was an honest statement. It is the coolest thing I've seen a college do, and the stuff you're doing is amazing. So go check it out. Like Shaun is, like he said, his DMs are always open. So go hit him up. Just go talk to him, and just experience the Shaun effect. I just made that up.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know if that needs to be a hashtag, but I look at it this way. I look at what college basketball and football do for their recruits. And I think, well, why can't soccer recruits have that type of stuff? So I just, I'll see something that a college football team or basketball team does, and everybody knows I'm a massive Duke basketball fan, so I'm always watching their Twitter accounts because their social media has all the most followings of any college sports. So I'm watching what they're doing, how they're attracting millions and millions. And obviously at Brescia, we're not going to attract millions and millions of followers, but like what's attracting players to want to go play there besides the name. And I just try to do that for soccer.
Yeah, you do.
And I'm going to start doing it for Alpha Soccer too.
Yeah, we'll talk.
Gang.
All right, Shaun, thank you so much for coming on. Thanks everyone for listening. Make sure you go check it out on YouTube too, so you can check out Shaun's bucket hat. All right, guys, see you on next week's episode.